Have you ever wondered how tiny organisms in the ocean can eventually fuel huge fishes, even sharks? Today, we'll explore how energy flows through trophic levels in the open ocean ecosystem. So, first, let us understand what are trophic levels. Trophic levels are the different steps or positions in a food chain or food web, you can say, that show how energy and nutrients flow from one organism to another in an ecosystem. Basically, what happens is that all organisms in a food chain belong to specific trophic levels, which represent their position in the transfer of energy. So, producers are at the first level, which make their own food, and every level above it gets energy by eating organisms present below it. This will be clear in a moment. Now look at this marine food pyramid over here. It represents trophic levels or the different feeding levels in an ocean ecosystem. At the bottom, we can see we have primary producers like phytoplankton, seagrass, and algae. These organisms, what they do, they make their own food using sunlight, so they form the first trophic level. Okay. Notice it is saying 1,000 pounds. This means we need a large amount of plant like organisms to support the next level. Next, we move up to first order consumers like zooplankton, blue tang fish, and queen conch. What these organisms do, these organisms eat the producers, so they are the second trophic level. Here we see 100 pounds of animals can be supported because much of the energy is lost when moving from plants to consumers. This comes under the energy transfer rule 10% law, which we will be seeing in the next few slides. Above them are the intermediate predators like barjack, black grouper, and yellowtail snapper. They eat the first order consumers, making them the third trophic level. Only about 10 pounds of organisms can exist at this level, again because the energy is decreasing as we go higher. Finally, at the top of the pyramid, we can see the top predators, the grey reef shark and the bluefin tuna. These are the fourth trophic level, and only 1 pound of biomass of these animals can be supported here, which means that we need a huge amount of producers at the bottom to support just a few predators at the top. So, overall, what this image is teaching us? This image is teaching us that as energy moves up the food chain, it decreases, which is why there are many producers but very few top predators. Now let's understand the energy transfer rule about which we were talking in the previous slide. So in this energy transfer rule, what happens is that as energy moves through the food chain, it decreases sharply. Only about 10% of energy gets transferred from one trophic level to the other trophic level. And the rest, what happens to the rest? The rest is lost through heat, movement, and life processes. This will be more clear through this diagram. See this diagram. At the start, the ecosystem receives 5 lakh units of radiant energy from the sun. But plants can capture and convert only about 2% of that. So at trophic level 1, what happens? The producers get only 10,000 units of energy which gets stored in their bodies, the plant bodies. When primary consumers eat the producers, they don't get all the 10,000 units. Most of the energy is lost as heat, as said earlier, during movement, respiration, and other life processes. So, only 10% of this energy, which is about 1,000 units, transfers to the trophic level 2. The same thing is again happening with the secondary consumers. When they eat the primary consumers, they receive only 10% of the previous level's energy, which is now 100 units at trophic level 3. Then at trophic level 4, a large predator eats many small fishes but gains only 10% of the usable energy again. Finally, at trophic level 5, what happens? The top predator gains only 1 unit of the energy which remains with it, which is the 1 unit from the original 5 lakh unit which was coming from the sun. So, from this diagram, we understand an important rule. As we go up the food chain, energy drops drastically and only about 10% moves to the next level. That is why ecosystems can support many plants, fewer small fishes, and only very small number of top predators. Because there simply isn't enough energy left to support more levels beyond this. Now, let's look at a marine food chain example, or you can say an open ocean food chain. And this question often comes in CSIR net exams. It was there in June 2025 exam, and it begins with nanoplankton, the primary, tiny primary producers. Then from the nanoplankton, energy moves up the chain like this, like nanoplankton are primary producers, then microzooplankton is there, which are primary consumers, and after microzooplankton we have mesozooplankton, which are secondary consumers. Then we have planktivorous fishes or tertiary consumers, which are tertiary consumers. And after planktivorous fishes, we have piscivorous fishes, which are top predators. But this is not so simple. Let me explain this through this diagram if the question comes in this line in the next CSIR exams. There is something very, very important. Please take a note of this. In the open ocean, the food chain doesn't start directly with bigger organisms eating the smaller ones, okay? There is an extra step that makes the ocean food chain longer and longer, and it is called the microbial loop. In this diagram, see what is happening. The energy from the sun first reaches phytoplankton. These phytoplanktons do not send all the energy straight away to the zooplankton. Instead, what they do is that they release dissolved organic matter, and when they die, their cells also break down. This dissolved organic carbon becomes food for bacterioplankton. Then, very tiny, extremely tiny organisms like picoplankton and nanoplankton come into play. They feed on these bacterioplankton. After this, microplankton eat this picoplankton and nanoplankton. Then in the scene comes mesoplankton and zooplankton. They eat this microplankton. Finally, who comes? Finally, fishes and higher trophic levels enter. They feed on the zooplankton. So instead of a straight line from phytoplankton to fishes, there are extra feeding steps involving microbes. This is why it is called the microbial loop, where energy and nutrients loop through bacteria and small plankton before moving up the food chain. So, what is the key takeaway here? The microbial loop here makes the open ocean food chain longer, allowing more trophic levels than land ecosystems. Okay, this is why open ocean ecosystems can support up to 5 trophic levels from nanoplankton all the way to large piscivorous fishes.